Okay, Loren, tell us how we get to fine, from fine to phenomenal.
Okay, there. Had to find the button to unmute. So thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to share. And there was so much, Denise, that you shared this morning that can flow right into what it means to go from fine in our lives, the holding on, being afraid to let go. And when people ask us, how are you? And we say, I'm fine. So what does fine really mean? And I'm sure everybody can relate to feeling absolutely frazzled, frustrated, irritated in so many ways. Yeah, neurotic on a lot of levels, and exhausted. Because being a caregiver leads us into all of this. And a little bit about who I am, because I've been a social worker in hospitals and hospices for many years, and clinics for multiply handicapped children and working with their families. And 10 years, 11 years after I got married, my husband developed a disability, and we were going through that whole process of what was going on for him. And he remained disabled with disabilities. Sometimes he could work, sometimes he couldn't. And I had two little kids. My daughter at the time was 10, my son was 3. And we had to process through what it meant to bring in their dad, who now was going to be different. And what does that mean to live with that kind of responsibility? And that went on for 25 years. My husband passed away last year, full disclosure. He had a mild stroke right when COVID was just exploding here, and ended up passing away on March 24th last year. In the midst of all this, my son, who was in the Air Force, was diagnosed with leukemia, most likely a result of his job in the Air Force, right at Christmas of 2019. So he went through a whole inpatient 6-week treatment where my daughter was able to live down there and take care, be his advocate down in North Carolina. So we were experiencing that caregiving responsibility on a really intense level. My husband and I were running back and forth and trying to manage all this. So if we look at being frazzled and frustrated and overwhelmed and really feeling kind of neurotic about everything and totally exhausted, he came home to do a bone marrow transplant at the end of February of 2020. And of course, COVID hit, and he ended up in the hospital to deal with having no immune system. And then he was in the hospital until he passed away last June 3rd of 2020. So coming into caregiving on a personal and professional level, you kind of think, I got this, and it becomes kind of a habit to manage, to, as Denise was saying, to hold on, take it one more step. We can always do one more step. And if you're immersed in caregiving, you kind of lose sight of anything else you could do. So as overwhelming as this past year has been, again, talking about, from what Denise is saying, having courage to make changes. And when life goes on one step at a time, your loved one is either in a stable place or you're in a constant state of overwhelm, of one crisis after another, that just becomes normal. And we keep on going, one more step. And it takes courage to say, I can do something different. So that leads to, people who know me know my favorite question that has to be asked and answered in any given situation is, what's my desired outcome? And a desired outcome has to fill two requirements. Number one, it has to be what you want, not what you don't want. So when Denise was talking about, oh my God, I'm afraid of letting go, will people be disappointed? Whatever we put our attention to gets bigger. So if I'm only focused on who will be disappointed, who won't like what I want to do, and you have this belief inside that you have to make a change, that you have to do something that's different in your life, what is it that you want? You know, they always tell somebody who's running in a race, never look back at who's behind you. Always look at where you're going. So that has to be the focus of your desired outcome. And the second requirement is that it has to be something over which you yourself have control. Because we don't have control for the most part over what the trajectory of our loved one's illness, disability, behavior will be. All we ultimately have control over is how we choose to handle their behavior. You know, people would tell me, oh, my mother calls me 20 times a day and she's complaining about one thing or another. Well, we can't control how many times a day you'll get that phone call, but we can control how many times a day you'll answer the phone or run into the room right away. That's the part we have control over. And will there be fear of doing something that's different? Someone won't like it. Well, the truth of the matter is that in many situations, and I'm sure everyone can relate to making a decision and someone will be upset, frustrated, angry, hurt, disappointed. It just doesn't always have to be you. And that's a big shift because, again, as the caring, caregiving people who we are, it makes it very hard to think that someone else might feel disappointed. But that is what happens. So again, as I said, you might not take every single phone call. You might not drop everything and run into a room, because every one of us knows the difference between an emergency and a demand. And many demands can be made to sound like an emergency, but they're not. And we do know the difference. So setting a boundary, even a small one, like the phone will ring and maybe initially you'll get that panicky feeling, I've got to answer it because maybe this is the time it's going to be the crisis. Even if all you do initially is let your phone go to voicemail and you call back in 1 minute. It's a way of taking steps. Going from fine to phenomenal isn't like the commercials you see on TV where somebody shows this giant size pair of pants and said, I went from size 40 to size 10, and all you see is the beginning and the end. And it's like, wow, it's a miracle. But you don't see all the steps that were taken to get from point A to point Z. We have to be willing to take those steps. And when my son was in basic training for the Air Force and he was feeling overwhelmed and can I get there and can I do this? And it's really hard. I shared a story with him about a mom who told her son when he was feeling scared and overwhelmed that he could take one more step. And as Denise said before, we can always take that step. We can always do something. We can hang on. If we're hanging on to achieve a goal, as my son wanted to make it through basic training, said you can take one more step. So in this case, you can take one step toward your desired outcome. Is your desired outcome to feel more ease, more comfort, have an hour to have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine with a friend? Is your desired outcome to have a weekend off? We can always take one more step for that. And my son ended up he got a tattoo on his chest that said, one more step, because we can. And it doesn't always have to be for our loved one, because ultimately, for our loved one, if we're taking good care of ourselves, we will take better care of them. So a boundary, if we think about it in global terms, it's about setting a limit with other people. And it indicates to them what we find acceptable or unacceptable. And since we teach people how we are willing to be treated, if we are there, Johnny on the spot, no matter what, they don't think about or have to think about what we might be giving up in order to be there for them. They see nothing wrong with their behavior, because if we've never told them, how will they know? So when we set boundaries with people, it is a sign of self-respect. If we say yes to someone or something else, as Denise was discovering over the career lifetime of everything she was doing for everyone else, nobody knew she was suffering. Who in your life, who in your world knows you're suffering? Because most of the time, we all look and act as if everything is great. We look like we got it all together, no problem. And initially, when somebody first becomes disabled or gets sick, we get a whole lot of recognition and praise. You know, people will say, oh my God, you're such an angel. How you can do this is amazing and wonderful. But their lives end up going back to normal, and they no longer really consider that what you're going through might be really difficult, might be really overwhelming. And so when we start thinking about our needs, it isn't an either or proposition. In order to take as good care of others as you do yourself, we have to start thinking about what it means to say no with compassion. Because boundaries are best set from a place of love, respect, care, not anger, not resentment. So think about the reasons you might close and lock a bathroom door. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, stay out. It's, I want privacy. I want time by myself. So I strongly recommend we think that same way. If I say, I can see you in a day, or I can take care of that for you at 5 o'clock, doesn't have to be this minute. It's like closing a door and saying, I need my privacy right now. So for anyone who struggles with that, think about taking a few extra minutes in the bathroom. I will send whoever wants, you can give me your email, or I can get your email from Denise if you like, and I will send you my 2-minute meditation that you can listen to whenever you go to the bathroom, whenever you go to wash up, soak in a tub for an extra 2 minutes. You can listen to this 2-minute meditation, to reset, calm down, and it gives you the opportunity to really think about what it is your desired outcome is at that moment. So, as I started to say before, it's not either or. We're not either taking care of our loved one or taking care of ourselves. We can do both. Caregiving needs to be an and proposition, not an either or. Think about if anybody has ever been on a plane, even if it wasn't in the last 2 years, when they give you instructions for emergency, should oxygen be required, they will tell you if you are traveling with a dependent, place the oxygen mask over your face first. And for most people, that may feel initially very counterintuitive. Oh my God, no, I have to take care of my child or my husband or my mother. But at 30,000 feet, if you don't get that oxygen on your face first, you will not be able to help your loved one because there is no air up there. On Earth, down here, the message remains the same. If we are not giving ourselves oxygen, if we are not breathing, we will increase our anger, our resentment, our frustration in whatever care we are providing for our loved ones. So the title of my book, which is Take Back Your Life, A Caregiver's Guide to Finding Freedom in the Midst of Overwhelm, was initially going to be the phrase I use all the time, and we breathe. In any given situation, when you are ready to jump, because that's what you usually do, and we breathe, it gives you a moment to pause, to really reflect, what's my desired outcome? What is it that really I need to do in this moment? Can I take a moment? Can I take 2 minutes? Can I listen to that meditation? So I started using that phrase as a parent raising kids who had different needs and demands and trying to balance everything out. I needed to be able to breathe. I am not one who can come up with those snappy responses and the witty comments. I need time to really think about it and process. So we breathe. And it's interesting because something Denise said about being afraid of what other people will think or feel or do if I make a change. There's a line from the poem, The Invitation, that says, can you risk the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul? Can you be faithless and therefore trustworthy? It really matters how you choose to take care of yourself. So we can take it one step at a time, one more step, but not just in holding our breath and holding on. We think about, what can I do to achieve a desired outcome? And a desired outcome can be something simple, can be something, I just want to take 2 minutes before I rush in, before I storm into a room out of frustration and aggravation. We take a moment. And Martin Luther King said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just get on the first step. So I want you to think about one thing you could do today that would help you feel a little less stressed. One thing. It might be, I'm going to drink an extra glass of water so that I feel less parched. It might be, I'll take an extra 2 minutes when I go to the bathroom and wash up. I'll take an extra 2 minutes in my shower. If we think of only one thing, we can probably do it. And it isn't about perfection. It's about taking steps toward what self-care means to you and the courage that's required to make a change. It may seem easy to keep doing whatever it is you're doing, but it takes a toll. As Denise experienced herself, the physical toll doing each thing for everybody else, what was it doing to her? What does it do to you to be in the position that you're in, the decisions that you've made up until now? You're not criticizing or questioning them. They worked because we didn't know then what we're learning now. And having my husband go through his journey with his disability, where his whole left side, he was a left-handed person, became atrophied. They really didn't know what was wrong. And he was in excruciating pain for years. You think every step we take made sense at the time. So if we don't know what we don't know, we can't be expected to do something different. And everybody's here not only for your support, but to say, what else can I learn? What else can I do? And I created years ago a step-by-step guide, which, think about if you've ever made a new recipe and you go to the grocery store, you take the list of ingredients that you need with you so you can remember to buy them all. So this step-by-step guide is an emotional support tool to think about a situation that you're in. We all have triggers. Maybe people tell me all the time, I haven't had time off in years. Someone I work with is working toward taking a week off from caring for her mother. And she doesn't have family support. Her siblings aren't around or available. So she's got to make plans. So maybe none of us can be totally spontaneous anymore. And we don't even know what it means to be spontaneous or to do something that's enjoyable or fun or uplifting. Because when was the last time you did any of that? So we have to look at, how do I take a step toward what I want? And this step-by-step guide helps you go through all the obstacles you might think or feel or believe. And I tell people all the time, and this is something worth writing down, don't believe everything you think. Let's be skeptical. Let's challenge what's going on, what's a habit, what do I just do because it's normal? Because when we take a step toward doing something that's different, we can make that normal as well. Think about everything that's become normal for us over the last year and a half. When did any of us do all these virtual conferences prior to 2020? And now it's pretty damn normal to click on your computer, get visual connections with people. You don't have to travel anywhere. If you're caring for somebody who's in another room, oh my God, look how easy that is. None of us were doing that really in this arena.
You've got it. This is your 2-minute warning, Loren.
Okay. None of us were doing that a year ago, right? So think about what becomes normal for you. And this is where your self-care, because you can take as good care of yourself as you do with those you love, if you're willing to take it one productive, meaningful, and empowering step at a time. So my gift to you is the step-by-step guide. And you can all join our Facebook group. It's Take Back Your Life, the Facebook group for TBYL self-care. And I look forward to sharing more comfort, compassion, insights, and steps you can take to take as good care of yourself as you do of those you love. And we breathe.
Okay, thank you so much, Loren. That was awesome. Lots of great comments in the chat room. You'll love going back and reading them. I want to let everybody know that we've got a gift. So Loren is donating her book, Take Back Your Life. And I'm happy to say that Darlene has won. So congratulations, Darlene. We'll be in touch next week about how to get your book. And I want to mention that we are keeping track of the gifts we're giving away in a spreadsheet, and you can keep track by clicking our link to our spreadsheet. Let me put it in the chat room. Okay, there's the link to our spreadsheet. So we'll keep track of the gifts. I've included some gifts that everybody can take advantage of today, some free Kindle books and a coupon code for our training programs. You can take 15% off with a coupon code. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Feel free to get up, walk around, refill your cup of coffee. We'll get started again in 10 minutes. I'm going to close the poll and start another one. So when you come back, feel free to vote in the poll and share your perspectives on courage. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you in 10 minutes.